It's
Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I'm proud to bring you our Living Theurgy podcast with my fellow theurgists, Brandy Williams and Tony Mierzwicki. Greetings, Brandy. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing great. Tony, how about you?
doing really well. Thanks for asking. How are you, Hercules? No one ever asks you.
I'm doing okay. I was exercising a lot today, so my hair is kind of sweaty and I'm really tired. But other than that, I'm doing great. I've been up
Hercules.
I've been upping the weights I've been using too, so I'm way past where I've been since the beginning of these particular challenges that have come into my life. So that's a good sign. And I'm always looking for ways of improving what I'm doing. So keeping busy. Now, we had an interesting topic that Clio had suggested, but Cleo's not here to discuss the topic. So, Brandy, you are a muse and you're always the source of many thoughtful and insightful conversations. So, do you have anything in mind?
Well, what was Cleo's topic? I've forgotten. Wasn't it like what we're doing?
Yeah, in times of difficulty, such as the times we find ourselves in, what next theologically?
Well, and Tony was just talking about how sort of scary it is out there in the world. So maybe that's not a bad topic, actually. We can always come back to it.
Okay, I like that topic as well. Tony, how about you?
I actually thought it was a really good topic, and I would be happy to discuss it, although it would have been really cool to have had Clio here.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully Cleo will find her way here. Thinking back in the past, if memory serves, this happened a few other times where she came a little late, so I'm not going to worry about it. And if we don't hear from her, I'm sure we'll all check up on her to see that everything's okay.
Yeah.
I'm very, I guess, confused by the time I find myself in and that we collectively find ourselves in. I did not know of such hate. I didn't find that such hate in myself, nor most of the people I've come in contact with. So I don't understand why hate is playing such a big role in the world we're finding ourselves in. And even following some spiritualities like the Unarius spirituality, where you take responsibility for everything in your world because you caused it one way or another. And if only in your projections or through past life deeds, you're responsible for the world, accept it and learn from it and deal with it. So although I'm usually gung-ho about that, I believe even the Unarians aren't that gung-ho about their approach in the current world we find ourselves in. Um, I'm trying to study the world objectively and again to use it as a mirror to look inside myself. I know that throughout the course of lifetime I had certain beliefs that I no longer hold because I've seen the beliefs act themselves out in world events. And some of them were long held beliefs, which I'd almost call values, but seeing it play out on the world stage, it's like, no, that's not a good thing to believe. I need to see this somewhat differently. But looking at the overwhelming amount of things transpiring and playing themselves out openly, I'm still puzzled as to what to make of this. So uh, I never usually feel this confused, but that's where I find myself right now. And in terms of what I intend to do on it, is I'm going to, through my actions, do everything I can to reverse it. Maybe not on a big scale, but on a local sphere scale. So, how can I promote different views, healthier views, less hostile views? How can I create programming that shares perspectives? I already have people who are being demonized, having shows on my channel so that their voice is out there. Like we have the first trans uh, talk show host in the country. She's had a show on my channel for like years now. So I'm making sure that these voices are heard because we're labeling each other with different labels, and labels are usually attached to hostility. So to start the conversation off, that's where I am and that's what I'm feeling. Brandy, you want to pick it up from here?
Well, it's kind of interesting because I look at what is happening, and I know that there are things that are just awful in our environment and things that I stand against. But I also kind of know that it isn't what's happening in this country is reflective of the character of the country. We've always had these two sort of sides, these bright and dark sides, where we stand for liberty um, and for freedom and for caring for people on the one hand, and then on the other hand, we demonize people and exploit them. And so there's this sort of balance. And
Mhm.
in terms of the macro world, there are people who are being harmed now, certainly, but we're not actually there. There have been worse times. I'm watching the Ken Burns Revolutionary War documentary, The American Revolution, and I'm so glad I am not living in those times.
Yeah,
That was miserable. We are not at war, and that's a blessing. We haven't had war for that kind of war for a long time. So I think part of it is we need to continue to stand up for the true values, the human values. We talk in theurgy, you know, we talk about the good, you know, that the good is what makes you happy. So helping each other is helpful to everyone. We raise each other up, and so we stand for that and work for that, and then also try to catch the things that are happening to people who are vulnerable, try to stand up for them and to use whatever power we have to try to better their lives and just continue to express these values. I think that's kind of where I am, and I put my my effort there, and I put my funds there too. You know, to support people who are doing more frontline work than I have been able to do for a while. So that's kind of where I am. It's like, yes, it's terrible, and also let's continue to work toward keeping peace.
right.
The thing that's most worrisome to me in this country right now is renaming the Defense Department the Department of War. We really don't want to go back to war. War is bad. You know, war really destroys lives, and we need to stand against that for sure.
I know my parents and in their generation, my grandparents, their generation experienced world wars.
Yeah.
And I grew up with the stories. And I knew that that was not something I wished to experience, despite the fact that in the heroic tales, it's a glorious thing, you know, to be involved in wars. I kind of saw that no, it's not. It's not a glorious thing. It's a manipulative thing where people who are spending to make a profit are throwing you into situations that you wouldn't normally have to deal with, not for reasons that are being sold to you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Tony, how about you?
I agree with both of you that I certainly don't want war. I don't know what the solution is. I would basically like a peaceful resolution to all the conflicts that we have occurring around the world at this time. So I want peace in the Gaza Strip. I want peace in the Ukraine. I want peace everywhere where wars are being fought. Um, I certainly don't want to go back to a situation where we are going into war. And Hercules alluded to the idea of wars being run for profit. Every war that we have is basically for the benefit of the military industrial complex. We don't go in to countries unless there's some sort of material benefit for us. If a country has no natural resources whatsoever, if there's nothing there that's of interest to various large corporations, war will not take place there. If a country is totally destitute, then war won't take place. As for the hatred which Hercules said that he is coming across, he had a transgender speaker on his show. Um, all we can really do is to try to lead by example, be supportive of people who don't quite fit in with other members of society. Um, I'm also noticing that there's much more hatred and intolerance in society, and it's not just here. in America. It's something that's occurring throughout Europe as well. I don't know what the solution is. All we can really do is to be the very best people that we can be, treat everyone with respect, keep working with the ancient deities that we're working with, just be the best people that we can be and be there, be available to support others who are in situations where they're being mistreated, treated badly. Um, just basically lead by example. There are, I don't know what you can do about intolerant people in society, people who feel that their religion gives them an excuse to lord it over others and try to make them bend to their wills. I'm a great believer in letting everyone express themselves and live their lives as suits them. So long as they're not hurting anyone, they should be allowed to live their lives in a manner that works for them. I'm not really coming up with any solutions. It's a really difficult situation, and but hopefully, if enough people act as we do and are tolerant towards others and treat others well, then maybe it'll start off a tide that will make the world a better place.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. Theurgically, I'm not a ritual type of person. I'm a very hands-on type of person, but I've been accessing the higher realms to see if I could do something on that level. Working with the most powerful iteration of my archetype that exists, which is in the theosophical writings, where Hercules is one of the Elohim, in fact, the chief Elohim, and he helped design the solar system. So that's about as powerful as I found a persona of Hercules. And I've been addressing things on that level. In my imagination, I see myself bathing the world with peaceful energies and the different colors that the Theosophists, as the Theosophists believe. But I know different people have different color systems, and I know both you and Brandy respect the coloring system with the planets. So I use the theosophical one, and just not knowing what else to do and how else can be addressed other than like empowering and being more patient with the people around myself, not feeding into any negativity or shortness of temper or anything, trying to be as harmonious as I can with the people around me at all times. And then that's the highest level I know of. I don't know if my doing so does any objective good, but in lieu of something else until something else comes better. I've been doing that like every single day, flooding the planet with like energies, hoping that that helps in some way.
Hercules, it sounds like you're echoing my words that we just have to be the best that we can be and work with the higher energies that we best resonate with.
Yes, that's my belief at this time. Because I have Parkinson's and arthritis of the spine, I can't do things like I used to. Like we used to march in the Pride Parade every year, my wife and I. So I can't do that anymore. We tried to go to a No Kings march, and I had to find like a light pole to lean on because standing was, phenomenally painful, and I didn't know how long I could standing up. But we stayed there for the entire event to try to at least lend our presence to what people were saying to emphasize it a little bit more. And a lot of people honked their horns in agreement, and some people were doing things like photographing the folks who were protesting and so forth. And the police came by a few times, and sometimes they were polite and sometimes they weren't so polite. So there was kind of ambivalence even there with them.
Mm.
Brandy, you deal with the higher realms very frequently. Is there anything you're doing in the higher realms?
Um, Well, I always invoke Athena. She sort of comes up as the force that I work with, to bring wisdom and calm, because she's a warrior, Athena,
Yeah.
but not the kind of warrior that Ares is, where your vision turns red and you go off and stab people. She's really very cerebral. She's very measured in her responses, and works toward peace as well. So you have to be able to defend. You have to be able to use the force where necessary, but her force is about defending and defending the civilization, really. So she's my go-to for for all of this. And so I've been working with her for, I don't know, since at least 2016, these sort of workings for justice. Let the people who are vulnerable be protected. Let the inflamed emotions calm. Those kinds of workings.
I'm mostly Lemnian in my Greekness, and that the language of the Lemnians and the culture was very close to the Trojan culture and the Etrurian culture, Tuscany, and the Etruscans. And there, Hercules and Athena were married, and
Oh,
Ares was their son. And there was no conflict with Hera. Hera was Hercules' mother. So I've been addressing that too, where Ares is part of the family and he's viewed heroically, and Athena and Hercules are working as family together, and there's no conflict with other parts of heaven, you know. So I've been using that mythology too to create like an atmosphere and try to recruit other energies to do what they can do, because I've run out of things that I can do, so maybe they could think of something and do it. They certainly have more reach than I do, more power than I do.
that's
Athena's
something
a,
I love. Go ahead, Tony.
oh, sorry, I cut you off. I think you started first. It was close, but I think you just got there first.
Yeah, I was just saying that I was going to tell Hercules that I love these alternate stories, and I love the stories where the conflict isn't happening, because it I think that's part of the problem. These foundational civilization stories that are about conflicts, and
Mhm.
when there's persecution, and among the gods too. And I just never believed those stories. They're universal forces, right? So yeah.
The way I've viewed it always is that the myths aren't there to tell you what to do. They're sometimes there to tell you what not to do, or if you do something, what happens. So Zeus is a very powerful male deity, and powerful males who are in leadership positions in our culture are known to do things like Zeus does in the mythology. So it isn't that you should emulate Zeus. It's just that in dealing with the archetype of powerful leadership, these are the type of situations that you're likely to encounter. These are the types of responses that you're likely to get. So while you're living your version of the tales with the archetypes that resonate, if you do it unconsciously, then you're stuck in the mythology. But if you're conscious, then you can try out different endings to the myth and have it try to come out better and kind of unstuck the gods from stories that they're stuck in too, because they're in our psyches and they're in everybody. So that's how I view that whole question. But I've been looking at it recently from the Gnostic point of view, because the Gnostics, it seems to be like the multiverses of comic books. They have like, what if the gods are good? What if the gods are evil? What if the gods are blind and heartless? So you have all these different teachers making up their own little Gnostic universes, and each one is based on the same characters more or less, but a different premise. So depending on which universe you're attracted to, you can actually live in a universe created by a madman who's created other gods to torture you forever, or you can create a universe where Sophia, in falling and spreading her soul among us, and Jesus coming down to gather up all the souls of Sophia that are ready to get unstuck from the illusion. So again, you have the same cast of characters, and whether they're good or bad or what they're there to do changes. and your paradigm changes depending on which version you get stuck in. So I've been looking at the gods as they are in the mythologies, like the archons, and I've been looking at the more idealized versions, like Gemistos Phlephon into that is the aeons. And I can't tell the difference between the archons and the aeons. They're the planetary spirits, basically different versions of them. But one is like the conflict-ridden, bad karma version, and the other is the harmony version, of the same forces, basically, even though they might have different names. So in terms of magically, I'm dealing with things on that level, trying to sort them out, trying to use the different palette wheel of Gnosticism to try to make sense out of the situation.
The archons are almost like jailer figures associated with the planetary spheres, and they're pretty much the flip side of the classical planetary gods, who can bestow various gifts on us, whereas the archons have to be placated as we ascend through the various planetary spheres. Hercules, the example of Zeus that you gave is particularly interesting because you look at the classical myths of him, he comes across as a virtually all-powerful rulership deity, but he succumbed to temptation. He was particularly lustful, and you could almost see him as a serial rapist. So he's a perfect illustration of the idea of the temptation of power. Power can lead to corruption, taking advantage of the power that you have and using it for your own ends, rather than using it for the betterment of society in general. And what I was trying to say before was Brandy's choice of working with Athena is particularly interesting because while she is a goddess of strategic warfare and wisdom, she's also a goddess of arts and crafts, and she was also the protectress, that the patron goddess of Athens. And I think we can call on her in that function. She can be a protective goddess for the cities that we live in to help us keep those cities safe. I think Athena is a particularly relevant goddess to be working with as we go into 2026, which was supposed to have been the topic that we're going to be discussing with today. There's so much uncertainty and violence in the world at the moment, and things seem to be getting worse. And I think they'll keep getting worse before they get better. So perhaps Athena is someone who we can all work with.
Yeah, my wife is Athena in this
Mm.
incarnation, and so I work with Athena every day in her war benevolence and like I said, the Etruscan Athena. She's the same figure. Minerva, her name is.
Mm.
But there are scenes on pottery and on mirrors that show the family together and Grandpa Zeus and Grandma Hera in this portrait also. So there are different ways of telling the stories, and um, I like exploring them because again, they're different endings, and we're not stuck in like something doesn't become inevitable or it's not a prophecy of something that has to happen. Things become possibilities, and possibilities are fluid, and you have more say in what happens in the realm of possibilities than you would in a fixed reality.
Ooh, sorry to interrupt you, but there's an email from Sunny. So it looks like she's standing on the sidelines. She sent an email 11 minutes ago. She wants to know if she should just log in or wait if we're recording. I think we can bring her on board.
Sure, of course we can.
So, like, has she tried to come in through you?
I don't see her here, but again, my eyes are fuzzy, so I will put on my reading glasses and see if I could spot her if she's in there already. No, there's only three in the participant box, and there's three of us. So Let me click it anyway. Nope, just the three of us are in here.
I just sent her an email that said jump on, so hopefully she could see it.
Oh, good, good. That's exactly what I was going to do.
Yeah, yeah. No, jump on. Yeah, I'd love to hear um what she had to say too.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I was only just notified of that a couple of minutes ago, but it was
Oh,
sent,
good
like
job.
I said, 11, 12 minutes ago.
Yeah, yeah. I was looking for her phone number. I'm like, oh, come on, Cleo.
Yeah, yeah, she's not in yet.
Wait. Yeah, yeah. Um,
I sent the link in the last email that I sent over.
Yeah.
is she on Tony, are you on Facebook? You could poke her on Facebook, maybe. You're my
Yeah.
Facebook guy. Yeah, I've been doing a little more work on Facebook and Instagram, you know, promoting the book. You got to do it when you've got an active book. Uh,
Yeah, people have been asking me to buy the book too, so it's good they sent all those authors copies. And I've been in like 20 other anthologies too. This one people are asking about. People have read it and I've been getting feedback. So I guess because that is the Llewellyn name on it.
oh yeah, no, Llewellyn has the distribution for sure. We were talking about Theurgy seven approaches to divine connection, which the seven people who usually meet, six of us and then one sort of quiet one who's met once here on
Include,
Living Theurgy. We've written.
yeah,
There's Cleo.
I stopped
Hi,
trying to
Cleo.
the
Hi.
person who's been here a couple of times. Hi, Cleo. How are you?
Hi, Hercules. Hi, Tony.
Hi,
Hi.
Cleo.
Yeah, I'm like, I know he's gonna record, so I don't want to have anything on it, but that's okay.
I'm glad
We
you're.
we had all taken a crack at the topic, which is how do we approach as theurgists, how do we approach our uncertain times? And we just ran out of gas, and then Tony said, "Oh, Cleo says she'll join." I'm like, "Yes, excellent. It's your turn, Cleo."
Fine. I was actually sitting there and then I fell asleep and I woke up like, oh no. Actually, yes, today uncertain times. I did a hand fasting today and a setting that where you cannot touch, you can't use anything to bind people, and they can't touch. It's what, yeah. And so I would say that's how I look at this question. Um, so not knowing what you guys said earlier, it is beyond never giving up hope, being very creative and asking the gods, you know, how to find the out of the box solution because so far things are kind of nuts. And part of it, just with uncertain times is reminding people that we each are here. There is a long running, I don't know if it's conversation, but someone's actually brought up things on Facebook, which I thought, well, okay, how is the pagan community or the magical community? How should we consider ourselves? And, is it going to be a high uh, only for those people who can afford to pay, or should it be something where everyone could get the knowledge? And it made me think how each of us has gotten into what we practice now and the many groups where we have been honored, I think, the people we've gotten to know. And it all starts with just one person connecting with another person. And no matter how strange the times are, people need to know that they can connect with each other and that at least there's someone who thinks like you do, believes like you do, or even if you don't believe exactly the same way, you can try. I had someone come up today from where I was practicing for that same group. It was first ritual they'd ever gone to, and they happened to be Christian, and they said, I've looked aside to something else. So figure where you were, say, 3 weeks into your journey. Where usually if someone asked you what your name was, um, you might not be able to give them this wonderful erudite answer of, well, this is my name, my magical name, and here's how I found it, because you were still trying to figure out things, and all you had were questions and no answers. And that's kind of where I see we are right now in this uncertain time and with theurgy. A lot of people have questions, nobody has answers, and we're trying desperately. Um, I don't know if that had, did you guys go that direction?
Partially, yes.
Oh, good.
That's wonderful,
Sorry.
though. No, it's great. I mean, we were that's wonderful. Keep going.
Well, I just and I love the background. Tony, your background, I don't know who the picture is, but it's lovely.
It's
Uh,
it's one of Susan's paintings. So I'm actually in her house in Palm Springs, and I'm surrounded by her artwork. And if we weren't on live, I'd walk you through, show you some of the paintings.
oh,
So she's
it is
I was
beautiful.
telling Brandy she's incredibly talented. Not only does she paint, it's all Elvis themed, but she actually does it in the dark. So she's got this skill
Wow.
set that I can't begin to fathom.
Well, that's also kind of in a way, maybe did you speak about that? Because that's kind of really where we are. When if you've ever written in the dark or done anything in the dark where you would think you ordinarily would need to see, but it somehow comes out much better. Um, and you kind of wonder, wow, is it a necessary skill set to do it, or is it just something that you get to after going on for ages, maybe months, maybe years, and you're like, yes, you become comfortable with what was kind of strange. So,
I I I see it as something tapping into ancient initiatic ceremonies. When she was living in Brooklyn, she was basically living underground, in this artist studio, and so many initiations would occur in underworld caves and the like. So you could look upon her artwork as being part of an initiatic process. And I remember watching one painting which she produced in Brooklyn. And at first there was just this figure. And I said, that's not Elvis. And then the following day she worked at it again and she modified it a bit more. And it was like, it looked like someone else altogether. And it took 3 or 4 days and all of a sudden, bang, it crystallized and you looked at it. So her approach is the eyes. You've got to nail the eyes. So once you get Elvis looking eyes, then the rest of it flows from there. So you could look at the whole thing as an initiatic process, much in keeping with what was done in ancient times in various ancient initiatic ceremonies. So I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but it almost is like that. I mean, you kind of triggered me when you, not triggered in a bad way, but triggered me off when you said that you pointed out the significance of her working in the dark, and I kind of made the connection with underground initiatic ceremonies in the ancient world.
hmm, yeah.
Just a thought.
No, I actually think it's a good one. Early at one point, I one of my jobs religiously was as in initiatory circles and just in regular circles, someone always has to be the person to remember and to take notes, and that was me. And so I got used to writing in the dark, which made sense to me perfectly. Not knowing one of my preparatory things, not knowing years before I had been a one of those volunteer ushers, and it's, you're in college, you can't afford anything, and but you get to see these great presentations for no money if you are willing to escort people in and just stand there in the back. You can never sit down. You had plenty of black and white in your wardrobe always. And you would see some great things. And I would start writing in the dark and find, and then what would come out afterwards is something similar to what you would talk about if you actually looked at, well, first, presumably you could read it because it takes a while to figure out how to write something without writing over what you're doing. And at least with something where you're painting, you think, oh, okay. When you're writing, it becomes a similar situation, kind of difficult, and you may not know what comes up. So I always think of that as you're reminding me when you're talking about the initiatory process, how things come out of nothing or seemingly nothing at the time. Um, And of course, you know what's happening right now, right?
What's happening right now?
It is the new moon
Ah,
in
okay.
Sagittarius. And I just realized, like, yes, um, it's one of those. Sometimes, have you ever noticed when you talk about uncertain times, how some of the Sabbats are falling, maybe not directly on, but very close to a full moon or the same day as or the day before? And then you have some that fall with a dark moon. This just happens to be one with the dark moon. I don't think of that as a happenstance, but I do think with all the stuff that's craziness that's going on right now, we have to think of things we might not have considered before as you know, individual traditions and as people and as groups. Um, and I'm not sure how that could be done because the very strength we have as groups and as people and as theurgists is also one of the things that keeps us separate. It's not that we're unorganized, we're just differently organized.
That's a very nice way of saying. You know, before you came on, I was talking about the archons and the aeons in not,
Mm,
and that too, it's kind of like each teacher's teaching is a way of differently organizing the mythical material to give you totally different experiences. So that if you follow a particular teacher's teaching, that's the universe you're living in. Or when you become advanced enough in Gnosticism, you can rearrange the planets and rewrite history to your own liking with the mythical material. And I think we're there to a very great degree. And looking at things through the lens of mythology or through the lens of initiation, which I view as the same thing, I find that very helpful in trying to make sense of the world.
does that mean that we are in a sense things may change once someone else is in charge? And by that I mean just going off what you just said, which makes sense to me, that if you're the one who gets to shape the history, then there are other people who are shaped by that history, and then they go on and have it. So we just need to have enough people on the side of a history that makes sense and works with theurgy as opposed to something that makes sense and works with something else.
It's
Or,
also the
you know,
power of the stories we tell ourselves. This I learned in psychology. I used to be in psychiatric rehabilitation, work in psychiatric hospitals and programs, things like that. That there's a mechanism called projection, and this becomes very obvious how projection works. We're studying politics, where projections all over the place. But basically, we do, to a very great degree, project onto the world that we're experiencing the stories that we're living. And we cleverly edit out things that don't fit into the story, so we reinforce the story. And often it's when you change enough internally so that you're telling a different story or experiencing reality through a different lens, that your life automatically changes. It doesn't become easier, but it becomes different. So I'm a very positive and optimistic person generally. So when I describe my life and what I'm experiencing, it's usually done in a very positive way. And despite whatever my challenges are, generally, not 100% of the time, because I'm human, I live in a very positive universe, and everything is ultimately there for my benefit and the benefit of the world around me, and the gods love us, and so on and so forth. But I know very many people who are pessimistic, and anything that happens to them, they feel victimized. So it's it's how they interpret what is happening and what context they put in that determines to a very great degree how they're going to interpret their life and thereby how they're going to experience the life that they're living. So I learned that pretty early on. So I try to keep as positive as I possibly can, and I try to tell myself stories that are positive and life affirming rather than gloom and doom type of stories. Because again, so many people are into the gloom and doom. The news now has become
yeah.
stories of outrage, and it seems that whatever side you're on, or whatever you're willing to accept as reality, the other side is falsehood and diabolical. And so you don't even know it's two different interpretations and other sub-interpretations. And depends on what you believe, that'll determine what world you're living in.
I was getting not chills, but I was thinking, wait a minute, I know we're on here. This is about theurgy, this group of theurgists. This sounds very much like what I was listening to at times, and I kept having to change the channel to something like music. It's not that I'm trying to escape into the past, but everything you just said regarding what was it you called it, projection,
Mhm.
um, on it is very much what I see in the world, starting with the news. I'm a big news junkie, but also with everything outside of it, just regular day job and coming from a facility, or at least that is based around some of what you're talking about. Because I think that would not only be the psychiatric hospital, but in the case if you're coming from a correctional facility or a psychological where someone is restrained either medically or physically, that you're going to have that, and that is the norm for that, and that is the world you come from. Then when you come outside, it used to be there's the inside, the crazies and things like that. There's the outside. Okay, I'm back to what I know is normal, and now there's very little difference between what's inside and what's outside. And that scares me, but that also means there's opportunity. So thank you for that suggestion that I will immediately incorporate before I go into the second phase of it tomorrow. Well, Sunday. And that explains why you are so calm in your approach, as opposed to wanting to rip your hair out, figuratively speaking, um, with what's happening, because that has been something that has, I think a lot of people have experienced that. And so that's a good reminder. Um, I do have a question for you, which kind of goes in with the theurgy part, and I guess it's for all of you. Is is the community falling apart because of lack of theurgy?
Which
And
community?
oh, sorry, which community? I don't remember this individual's name. All I know is that I've been seeing on Facebook, Meta, whatever, a variety of posts. And since I'm not on there a lot, it's whatever comes through. And which I've stopped trying to understand how Facebook Meta does this. This individual has had half the people in the paying community, it seems. This whole thing about who gets, who doesn't get. And I thought, well, wait a minute. And then it's like, and here's thaumaturgy and here's theurgy. And I'm thinking, okay, at one point, this whole list of individuals. And all I could think of is, well, if that's what you're going to have is like your tribal council, so to speak, well, does it have to be that we each take a separate role? Like, if you're the theurgist, does that mean you are not doing thaumaturgy? Does that mean that you are not the wise person in this area? It's got to be something that works. And yet we have these labels. And I wonder if that is something that gets in the way of how to practice theurgy in uncertain times, because we are all labeled. And if we are not following our label, doggone it, then there must be something wrong with us or someone else, if that makes sense. Just the labeling and how
That
we have
makes,
to fit the label. I'm
and
sorry,
I
sorry,
think to
Bruce.
tackle that, I started something called the cerulean sphere, which on one level is the Earth, it's
Mhm.
basically, and at another level, it's kind of like the astral plane, but the
Mhm.
astral plane is imagination, it's stories that are told that we buy into and experience things through. It's dreams, it's fantasy, it's, all those type of things that determine the world that we live in. And if we look around ourselves in a particular way, everything, every single thing that we see was imagined by someone and created by someone else, and then we kind of collage it and stamp our own uniqueness into it. So everything is created, everything is imaginal initially at some point. So I got people who are interested in the esoteric, and they're talking from where they're standing, but instead of using a cultural context, I've used the color blue. So we're eventually going to deal with the other colors. And one way of looking at it is the cosmic rays of theosophy. since I'm leaning very heavily on theosophy, I'm using that for now, but it's in your tradition. What does the color blue mean? And what can you do with the color blue? And we talk about that. So there's like, we've looked at blue angels in different traditions. We've looked at blue uh, stones, precious stones like lapis and so forth. We've looked at blue energies. We've looked at blue light. We've looked at all sorts of blueness. And using the theosophical template, try to define the blueness and then have people from different traditions deal with an aspect of blueness that resonates with what they're doing. So one person, I know it's difficult to grasp, but I'm trying to get as many different.
Like this. This is good to grasp.
So you can call yourself whatever you want to be. You can be high muckety muck of Jesus, and that's fine. If you have something to say about how the color blue is, and if your God plays nice, you're welcome to join in. Now, when I did the Age of Heroes in New York 30 years ago or something like that, um, I welcomed people of all backgrounds. And what I was giving them a chance to do was to dedicate their work that they were doing for the good of all to deities that weren't normally accepted by organizations. So I had devout Catholics, I had devout Jewish people, unconventional Jewish people who were following a rabbi. I had Satanists, I had werewolves, I had vampires, I had Olympians, I had all sorts of people. Our myth was Jason and the Argonauts, which most people knew from the movies, they grew up with the movies. And people in the human services in Brooklyn at that time that I talked to, they wanted to get into the human services to help people. And they felt very much like the iron fist and the velvet glove of the state, forcing regulations on people. So I invited them on an adventure, and they could do it in the name of whatever God that they wanted, but their God had to play nice. So if their God could stop worrying about the wars in heaven or the wars between gods or any other things or blasphemy and so forth, if you wanted to help us give computers and computer knowledge to people who are being affected by the new digital divide that was forming at the time, then you're welcome. Your God is welcome. And we had all these people working together. And I was contacted by the Catholic Church. I was contacted by Jewish mystics. Jewish mystics said I was doing a mitzvah, so it was okay for the followers. And even the Catholic Church, okay, what I was doing. Strange though, it must have sounded to them. Uh, so again, that was the only rule. The gods have to play nice, and we're going to do this thing for people. We're not going to do it for heaven. And eventually, Bill Gates solved the problem by giving libraries computers so people can go there. But until that happened, we had a computer center in Brooklyn, and one agency had given us a room to use. Some other people gave us time where they could teach people how to do emails and how to use search engines and things like that on the computer. Somebody else had tons of computers that were old and they were going to throw them out. So they gave them to us, and we had crappy computers, but they worked. You could do certain things on them. So that's what we did. And eventually it grew. I had a cable show at the time, so we did a pilot for the Age of Heroes, and also a local newspaper. We had they were covering us with articles, so we were like knighting people to get involved in the Age of Heroes, and we had a comic strip for a couple of years. So it became a lot of fun, and eventually became unnecessary. But nobody had any agreements, and nobody put any money into it. Everybody just volunteered to do it, and we did it because it needed to be done, and everyone who was involved was happy to have done it, and nobody argued. So we didn't. People weren't looking strange on the Satanists involved in fixing the computers, for instance, or the werewolf who's doing the website. So I know that's possible. So that's what I'm trying to do again now with the Cerulean sphere. And that's how I'm approaching the question that you posed.
I think that is terrific. When I hear that, I wonder how even quasi-realistically it could be done given the the presence when people talk about artificial intelligence has been a part of my life in terms of my work, how I make money, and also a part of the lives of people around me in all different areas. But what you talked about is something I think could be so beneficial at this point to so many groups who just the idea of you're welcome as long as your gods play nice. That to me sounds like an amazing time. I don't know, given some of the tensions, at least in certain parts of the country, if this would be more of a stretch than others. Um, but I think it's something we could do.
Well, you're welcome to play. Everyone's welcome if they'd like to or to check it out. And there are podcasts where we deal with the color blue, which is the first step in doing this. So again, you'd be more than welcome anytime you like. You're more than welcome to watch what we did before, to get involved, to ask questions. I welcome it.
I would like to do that. My only question would be at this point, what made you decide on the color blue at first as opposed to something else?
Because Hercules in Neo-Theosophy, where he's the creator of the solar system, is tied with the color blue.
Ah,
And that's because that's the color of the sky. So the system upon which New Theosophy is based, when we didn't know the current arrangements of the planets, even though they tried to adjust it, blue was the highest because it was the color of the firmaments. So the sun was under the firmaments. So the Uranos, which became Uranus or Uranus, uh, he's like the highest in the heavens, according to some forms of reckoning. So the color there is blue because that's the color of the sky.
hmm.
So that's the reason. I haven't been able to find anything more complete than that answer. Who knows? Some
Lovely, thank you.
way of looking at things. Brandy, Tony, any thoughts?
I wanted to come back to something that Cleo said. You said that you've been watching a discussion about thaumaturgy versus theurgy online, and it's so fascinating to me that that comes up over and over again. I was, 50 years ago when I entered the magical community, like, well, you're talking about thaumaturgy, I'm talking about theurgy. Like theurgy is like the spiritual part, and thaumaturgy is just trying to make stuff happen. And I'm just rereading Gregory Shaw's book Hellenic Tantra, where he makes the point that the ancient Neoplatonic teachers did both. They were theurgic and they were understood to be saints and people who were highly spiritually developed, and they would throw down and do something to heal somebody or go out in public and make a ritual to make stuff happen. So I think it's a false dichotomy. I think that our magic has to serve both our needs, our individual needs, and also the as well as the spiritual needs. So that's just my
No, I agree with you. What I find interesting is that this came out of the presumption, which I think is a false presumption, that the only way that you are served by the current community um, is that if you get, how do you get information? And I came up in a tradition where you are in a group or you are with someone who's teaching you, and there was no, the exchange was a spiritual exchange. There was not a here, you're paying this much, or you have to,
uh,
if you're someone, for example, we are going to be at Paganicon. Does it matter that that is a paying conference? And what most people may or may not know, well, first, please come see us at Paganicon if you hear this podcast. It's in March, sorry, yeah, March of 2026, um, in Minnesota, in Bloomington. But the reason that started was because for years, the very free and still free every fall Pagan Pride Festival, people liked that. It was a wonderful way to do good. Extras would go to the local food pantry and food shelf. So they tell people, please bring food, canned goods that would go there. So we're giving back to our community. And that is what our locals would call a 101. You see us in the park, you have no idea. Who are these pagans? Oh, okay. Well, first you didn't know who we were. And you go and you see something like, oh, okay, I hear the music. I like the music. I see someone selling wares. Okay, I like what's there. I want to go shopping. or you hear someone giving a brief 20-minute, 30-minute talk on something. And that is our way of outreach to the community. It must be free. It must do something good for others, in this case, usually a local food bank, food shelter, some sort of center. And you've got something that it's in a place that is easily accessible. In our case, it's a park. Minnehaha Park is where it is, first Saturday after Labor Day in September. And it's open to everyone. But there are some people who would like to have a little more information. And so they worked really hard over at least almost a decade to get the actual festival Beganicon. And so is it wrong to say, hey, we're going to charge a price, and if you can afford it, but we offer scholarships, that you too can come and mingle with others who are like-minded, who want to share their knowledge, their wisdom, and you get, if that's all you do all year and you're saving up for that, I think it's great, but I don't think we should be chastised for having that as an option, and at the same time chastised for not having enough options, where if someone wants that we are, if you have a festival, they are the gatekeepers, as opposed to having everything that is open to all without any cost, because that gets in the question of should clergy be paid, for example, and all this back and forth. And that's where it actually was at. And I'm probably not doing justice to the individual who set it up, who keeps saying, I am just a student. I have no skin in the game, but has prompted a great deal of interest in just the question of how the community goes forward. And within that, those levels include there's the theurgy versus thaumaturgy. And I agree with you, Brandy. I think you need both. And I think there should not be a separation. Um, and
They are the same. They're really actually the same. They come from the same understanding. And it's so funny, Cleo, because I'm 69 years old and I've been doing this for 50 years and people were talking about this 50 years ago. Like this money like always comes up, right? And it's like, well, and the answer is already existent. You have a festival that's free that people have come to, and also there are some things that you have to have money to do. So to say that's not okay is like, okay, are you going to organize a festival? Why don't you go ahead and do it? You know?
that is what I find interesting is the person who's presenting all these who actually deleted their first post. Again,
Mm,
haven't heard of this guy. Um, but I thought, okay, is this meant to stir up things? Because as someone who is
yeah.
young, which he sounds very, very young, by young, I mean, well, he could be 30. I have no idea. But young
Inexperienced, maybe. Yeah.
as in understanding the community and why having different options does not mean that the community is just filled with people who are snobbish, and that if you are someone who maybe you are retired and the only income you get outside of maybe Social Security, if you have that, is if you're going around and teaching, giving lessons, whatever. I don't hold that against you, and I don't think anybody else should either. Um, if that,
Yeah.
should you make a living wage? Well, who here hasn't had something that they're doing to try to do that? It's a very interesting thought and a totally different topic, I realize, Hercules,
No,
as to whether or not.
not a totally different topic, and it is important. I'm retired from the things I was doing, and I'm teaching mythology, interactive storytelling, and that's what I do. And sometimes there's classes, sometimes not classes, but that's what I'm doing. That's what I can do to supplement our income. So it's very much in line with my spirituality, and I do it as a spiritual practice in part. But it also brings in much needed money to pay for food and to pay for unforeseen expenses and things like that. The ancient philosophers got paid. So
Yes,
the ancient priests got paid. In fact, in Herculean lore, priests were called parasites, because they would get paid a lot. So we, why shouldn't people get paid for the work that they're doing?
well, this has been an issue. I remember being at a pagan pride that was held one year. It was held in a church, and it was held in a church that year because we could not get sorry, it was a Paganicon. We could not get the space we needed. So they held at this place, and the question came up as always, you know, the fight for we need to have everyone be paid. And then it's like, well, why, but you have people who can't afford to pay, so why should they have to pay? And I can't think of any other religion offhand, if you guys can please let me know, where it has been a repeated issue of whether or not the the necessity to earn a living wage is going to be something seen as bad within the religious context. And if we were meant to be in other religions where you are being supported by your community, then that's what you would have with traditional people who live in monasteries. Even then, they are, and I'm thinking actually Buddhist monastery, but any pick your monastery or nunnery, they would do work and stuff, but that can't be everyone's job over the entire planet. You've got to have different things, and that doesn't mean that you should judge. And I sort of feel if there's a flaw in this time of uncertainty with theurgy, it is how we are judging each other and or being judged by what we are choosing to allow or not allow in terms of not who comes within paganism or heathenry or polytheism or anything of the sorts, anything on this side of the fence, but how one actually presents in terms of, oh, are you charging? Are you not charging? This uneven sort of balance. And it does bother me. Um, so thank you, Brandy, for bringing it up because it has been a continual nightmare. And thank you, Hercules, for mentioning that, yes, it is something that people may not be open to talk about it, but they need to survive. I mean, otherwise, are we all going to just support each other and say, okay, we'll do this, and you'll be that person who provides this wonderful wisdom, and we will just, pay you. And by that regard, we have some semblance of knowingly or unknowingly control over how you live your life. And I don't think that that's what anybody wants either.
Sorry to be monopolizing a conversation, but I've dealt with that. I've always done things for free too, and like I was doing them in libraries for a while, and then people started offering me money, so I started getting scheduled in schools and things like that, and doing it for money. And I used to give talks for free at the library and in other institutions, and then places offered me money to teach classes. So I made money. Then the pandemic came, and people couldn't go anywhere, and people started doing things on Zoom. And so it always changes. And now, for the thing that I do in my home, which is like a continuous instruction, we have like a plastic cauldron with a lid on it, and it's at the entrance to the door. And if anybody has money that they'd like to give me for the instruction, they can do that. If they don't, they can't, then that's fine. And sometimes there's nothing in there. Sometimes there's 20, 30 bucks in there. I would do it for free anyway. But if they want to give, they can give. If they don't have to give, or if they don't want to give, they don't have to give. And that's how I've solved that. I still, the instructions part of what I've done for all my life and what I'll always do until I can no longer breathe. And I suspect beyond that, I'll be doing this. So it's there, it's there. Sometimes there's rain, sometimes there's sunshine, sometimes there's strong winds, the weather of life, and we adjust to it. But I don't believe that we should be keeping information from people that could benefit from the information just because they're not, paying us directly.
And I'm curious, Tony, um, Australia or New Zealand? I always keep forgetting. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Um, is this something that is a just more of a US trend in the United States, or is it something that is seen in other places around the world? This concept of payment for, or I don't know. Sorry, you're laughing. I don't know if that's good or bad.
You are opening a huge can of worms. This is a huge issue in Sydney at the moment. So we
Oh,
have various organizations that don't want to charge. And so specifically, I'm referring to Alexandrian witches. They will put on events for free. But the problem, it's quite a nuanced issue because while they may be supplying their time for free, if they're using a venue, that venue has to be paid for. Our society functions on money. So they recently started leaving a donation jar so that they could cover space rent for the venues that they'd use. Meanwhile, you have other individuals who want to charge for their workshops, and it's a huge issue in Sydney at the moment. And it's been an ongoing issue. When I first ventured into the pagan community almost 30 years ago, um, already then there were arguments on over whether teaching should be charged for or whether it should be free. But as Hercules pointed out, in ancient times, there was always some sort of exchange of energy. So, for instance, even if you had no money, you could go to a teacher and offer to do chores for them, cut wood, clean their house, or what have you. There was an exchange of energy. It's in our society, money tends to function as an exchange of energy. And we've been talking about various public events. And as you pointed out in Paganicon, they have, I think they call them scholarships, where someone can come in and have their entrance fee paid for. In many public events that charge money to enter in, they have some sort of work scheme where you can come in, volunteer to do various tasks. So even if you have no money, you have various skills, various abilities. You might be doing security work. You might have cleaning duties. You might have cooking duties. There are all sorts of things that you can do in order to contribute. But the debate on whether you should be charging for teachings or not charging for teachings has been ongoing. Personally, most of the time when I speak, I don't get paid. I see it as a way of giving back. I may be able to sell a book or two to cover some of my expenses, but there are a couple of events that will actually pay you to talk. And it's a case of if they're willing to offer, it always feels good to be paid because it feels like there's a recognition of all the work that's gone into preparing a talk. And, we've all been down there. I remember listening to Brandy years ago. Not only does she prepare her talk, but she will rehearse it a number of times to make sure that it fits in the time allotted. I tend to wing things a little bit more. I'm not as well organized as Brandy is. But the point is, a lot of work goes into preparing a talk. Yeah, we've all been down that route. So to have that acknowledged through payment is a wonderful thing. But by the same token, it's important that knowledge get out. We live in this amazing time at the moment where there are very few secrets left. Most material is available in books from now on. Back in the day, you had to be incredibly wealthy. You had to join a secret society, pay a lot of money, and you would be given access to very rare texts. Those days are gone. Almost everything is out there, although there are a few oral teachings in various secret groups, but almost everything is out there. So that's sort of a hand waving answer to your question, Cleo. I hope you're happy with it.
I was expecting that. I thought at first, I was like going, when you didn't say anything for me, I thought, oh no, either A, you can't hear me because your Zoom is going weird, which has happened a lot this week. Or I thought, well, I can't tell because from this angle, sometimes your eyes look like they're closed. I'm like, no, they're not closed.
No, they're open.
Then I realized you were laughing, and I thought, oh no. I didn't realize it was a huge issue because yeah, we do have things where sometimes they'll ask people when you register, would you like to put money towards a scholarship? They will also ask people, hey, if you can come and work for 2 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, we have this much off. And if you're willing to basically be there for 3 days and work half the time, it's almost free or is free. And it's not the only festival that's done that. But I find it very interesting that the same issue of what is currency and what is not currency comes. And yet, if you join a group, some groups are like, yes, we want you to pay, not because we want you to pay, but in currency, but because we need to have things like, oh yeah, we got to keep the lights on. We have to be able to pay for this venue, which is not going to accept our, prayers and gratitude and other acts of theurgy or thaumaturgy to help, because that's not how they work with it. And it's almost like, well, we are living in two completely different spheres of existence with regard to what we value and what is okay and what's not okay. So I'm, on the one hand, saddened to hear that there's a big fight in Sydney, and a little comforted to know that this is not something that we're battling alone. But it would be nice if it was something that didn't have to keep being repeated.
The community in Sydney is far smaller than it is here in America. So what would be a tiny, insignificant fight in America becomes huge because you've got far fewer people involved.
See, I see why you're here. You don't want to be involved with this big fight.
Uh-huh.
And Hercules, I need to jump, and I promised you a look at the kitten, so
Oh,
she's been around.
Oh,
Yes,
she's gorgeous.
Love
yeah, a little semi-void. She's gray with gold eyes.
she
oh,
is.
Yep.
I love her eyes.
mm.
How old is
Her
she?
3 months. Her name is Dulcie because she's so sweet. She's purring now.
Hmm.
Oh,
Oh,
she's the new addition to your household. She looks lovely.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, little young youthful energy. That's another key, by gum. You know, to have young youthful energy in your life is very, very important.
and I'm sorry you have to jump, but I understand it. How can people contact you, Brandy?
Oh, Brandy Williams author, everywhere. Facebook, Instagram. My Pathos blog is Star and Snake. I might write one again soon, actually. And we will be at Paganicon in March. That's the first time you'll get to see all of us. So go. We'll be on a panel actually. Hercules will be on Zoom, and the rest of us will be in person. So come and see us.
Thank you so very much, Brandy. Always a pleasure speaking with you, and nice to meet you, Dulcie. We'll talk soon.
Bye.
Bye. And we have around 10 more minutes, and I have to jump.
oh, okay.
Um, one of the things that I did when I had a big event, I tried my hand at doing events, was we made the we had a small admission fee that was
Mhm.
affordable by anybody. It was like $5 to get into the event. And then we had vendors. So we charged the vendors for the event, and they got tables and things like that. And that guaranteed that the event was paid for.
That's really nice. I had not thought about, but when you said that, that makes sense. Every festival gathering I've gone to has had vendors, and sometimes vendors will say they know, for example, if they're coming to something, say like Pagan Pride, they have to pay for their space, but they know that they're going to, if they, especially if they get a good spot, if it's not raining, they're going to sell out because we're rain or shine. And I think that having the vendors pay for what's essentially the cost of the venue is very helpful. Hadn't thought about that, so thank you. Um, for those listening who are wondering to that and to answer that age-old question, how do I pay for this? Have vendors, and the vendors advertise, and people who like the vendors will come. And even if they don't know the vendors, they'll come because who doesn't? We're all curious, like the lovely kitten that was just on. We're all curious. We all want to go find something and seek something new. So thank you.
You're very welcome. We have a couple of more minutes each before we sign out. Are there any words you'd like to leave us with? We'll start with Tony.
Um, while vendors can be used to recoup costs, the fact is that you need a lot of money up front. A friend of mine ran a number of events in the Los Angeles area, and while she had people paying for admission, and it was a sliding scale. So there were people who'd be sleeping in cabins, people who'd be sleeping in tents outside. They would be paying far less. She had vendors and the like. She would have to pay for the venue in advance. So she had to dip into her own pocket, pay for everything, and then hopefully recoup all the costs. Things start to become a little bit tricky if vendors don't make many sales. If they haven't paid in advance, if the arrangement is that they're supposed to pay at the end of the event, if they haven't made as much money as they wanted to, it can be difficult collecting for them. Another friend of mine who would put on events in Australia had that issue. She would put on events in Brisbane and the vendors were supposed to pay, and then they'd say, well, I can't afford to pay you because I haven't sold as much as I had expected to pay. So then it becomes really, really difficult to get them to pay. I mean, what do you do? Do you force them to pay or do you just let it slide? The fact is that the money has to come from somewhere.
Hmm.
That's the way our society works. So you hire a venue, that venue expects to be paid. And I think it was no, it was you, Clio. You sort of said that you can do prayers and affirmations, but that doesn't substitute for cold hard cash. The whole situation's very, very nuanced, and the reality is that a lot of pagans aren't all that wealthy. New
Yeah.
Agers seem to have far more money in their pockets than New Agers than New Age than pagans do. So they can afford to have really expensive events, and their attendees don't seem to have a problem at all coming up with money, whereas our pagan community tends to be rather poor by comparison. It's the I wish I could come up with just one solution for everything, but like I said, the whole situation is very nuanced.
Hmm. And actually, what I find interesting, years ago, as a part of the BDSM community, one of my friends who did a magazine and everything's fine, they said they would love to go to more pagan events, but the difference to them between pagan and New Age was, like you mentioned, New Age, people are willing to pay stuff. They're willing to show up and pay these astronomical fees to come to this thing, and they seem to have a lot of disposable income. And the pagan events, which also would, would be interesting. His partner was a seamstress, so she would do a lot of Renaissance festival things, and she would also go to a lot of pagan events. And they found the ones where they sold the most were New Age, and the ones where they sold the least were the pagan events, because some people might come and get stuff, but a lot of people just couldn't afford it. And I wonder sometimes if it's also a practical issue where you're pagan and you may not be wealthy, but you're practical. So unless you're really blowing your budget, which some people do at the start of their journey, that you eventually are going to realize, no, I can't have X amount of 200, 300, $500 items to go through to support what I'm doing in the community. And if, especially if I'm going to get back, whereas someone who is going to do it for the new age, the expectation on the new age side is that, yeah, you should be expecting to charge and charge because people expect that, and they almost have a value based on how much you're charging. Oh, you're charging this, great. And if you look at some of the things that are listed online where they will now have a particular lesson or something, you always notice it's like, oh, this would be, if you got all these things together, $995, but for today we're going to charge $297. And so how much of it is marketing? How much of it is good old salesmanship, which can be happening in anything, but people expect that because that's how it's, for lack of a better term, sold to them, as that's the core part of their industry. So there are lots of people who make money, I think, in the new age because that's the expectation. And someone else on the outside might go, well, oh, because they're not, heaven forbid, putting it as a religion. Once you put the religion aspect on it, then it's the question of, oh, well, there should not be there should not be money attached to it, which I think, again, is wrong. But I understand what you're saying about the New Age community. I've seen that. And then, of course, if you mention anything that deals with finances, all of a sudden, there's this whole backing off of the religious aspect from the New Age folks, and there's backing off of the money aspect from the pagan folks, which is odd because they're two sides of the same coin.
And unfortunately,
Complete.
leave this conversation here and continue it next time. So, Tony, how can people contact you?
Easiest way is through Facebook. I have a personal page and an author page. I also have a blog on Pathos like Brandy does, but mine's called Holistic Spirituality. And I was just going to say I totally agree with what Cleo was saying, but obviously I don't have time to give details.
Well, it's good. We have a topic that'll continue. So I feel it should be touched upon, and that we started skimming the edge of the iceberg today, and we'll finish it another time. Thank you so much, Tony. And Cleo, how can people contact you?
You can contact me on Facebook at Clio Ajana. That's my personal page. Just PM me, direct message me, and then I can get back to you. You can email me at cleoajana@gmail.com. I also write as a columnist for the Wild Hunt, and I am the first Saturday of the month when it's the first full Saturday. So if Friday is the first and Saturday is the second, I got a column. So I will be coming up with my new things for January, the first Saturday in January, and that's the wildhunt.org. And of course, I will be along with Tony and everyone, and then by Zoom with Hercules at Beganica,
Hmm.
which is in March 2026. Tickets are available. I don't know when the price goes up, but everyone who is hearing this is welcome to come. Come to Minnesota. Don't worry about if it's, come check the weather. We might have snow. We might have 60 degrees. Who knows? That's the beauty of it. But it's March.
Thank you so very much, Clio. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Brandy. And nice meeting you, Dulcie. Everybody take good care. I wish you well. I wish you happy holidays, a happy new year, and joyous journeys and amazing adventures. Good night.
Good night.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.